Mabuhay, kapwatids! My name is Stephanie.
And my name is Aimee, and welcome to the Babaylan Bruha Book Club podcast.
We have come together in efforts to decolonize our minds, our bodies, and reconnect with spirit by ways of relation via conversation, of education, interpretation, and integration.
So, this is our invitation for you to join us on our journey as we discuss works from honored artists, authors, and thought leaders from the Filipinx diaspora. Quick disclaimer: we want to acknowledge that everyone is consciously where they need to be.
And we are not experts, but we are sharing our own unique lived experiences.
Hi everyone, welcome back to another study break with Ivy and Steph. We are having a special guest today, our sister Krisell, and we'll be diving into dreams. We wanted to kind of talk a little bit more about dreams and how that ties into the Babaylan and her work as well. So we met Krisell through a sister circle called Mayati, which is the goddess moon goddess of the Philippines. And it's weird that we only met in October, but I feel like we've known each other for lifetimes.
Because we have.
And sort of kind of what led us to work with her on an individual level. I mean, I have sat with her and her skills and her gifts, and have dove into subconscious. I have a subconscious hangover right now. I'm not gonna lie. So I'm gonna be sitting with my subconscious for the next few days and just pondering what was revealed. And one thing I will say, the way she guided me was very professional and very thank you. It's like the tie of like, yeah, it was like I felt like I had a therapist for lucky. So I really appreciate her style and how she opened up, built a rapport, and made me feel comfortable. And it was like a combo of talk therapy and then the actual hypnosis piece. And yeah, as a whole experience, it's just interesting, and I won't go into tangents about it, but how our gifts come online, but we look for certification. But in reality, when you sit with someone and they're just sharing their gifts, like I didn't even need like a PhD or whatever on her name. It was just what she brought to the table that really helped me go into my psyche. So yeah.
Yeah. So Krisell, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do, and then I will go into my experience with you as well.
Sounds good. So it's interesting because I have a 15-year background in commercial banking. So I come from a very corporate background, but right here, right now, and in this moment, I am a freestyle modern Bruha, I guess you can say.
Millennial.
I identify as a multidimensional medium in the sense that I don't use one intuitive tool. I use lots, and I don't try to identify with the tool that I'm using because I just kind of freestyle it. So I work with spirit communication, as in I am a medium and speak with our loved ones and ancestors. I use energy healing, I use hypnosis, I use sound healing. I work in the Akashic Records, and I mean, there are other things that I do that I don't even know what it's called, but I use divination in how I work with people to empower them to have confidence and to be conscious leaders in the collective. And the most meaningful work to me is when I am teaching others how to work with divination and how to embrace their psychic self. Because I came from a background of being terrified and not wanting to acknowledge that any of this exists. And so I believe that if I can do it, anyone can do it.
Awesome. Yay. Yeah. So I did a QHHT session with Krisell, and QHHT stands for
quantum healing hypnosis technique.
Yes.
Yes.
And
Wow.
it was like an experience for sure. And I'm still I will honestly say, like, that particular session brought me a message that kind of brought a lot of healing, like this specific spot in my life that I've been kind of like waiting for. So that was amazing to do. And so everybody who I've shared this with, my experience with, they all want to like, I have to give them your contact info because they're like, I want to do that. And my husband's going to have a QHHT with Krisell at the end of the month. So that'll be fun.
Come on, man. Yes.
I'll get to be all nosy about his past life. Like, who was your wife in the past life?
It was you.
It was me.
You were
it was me.
Farm. You'd be like, what did I look like?
Yeah. What I look like though? Was I as cute?
Yeah.
Did it have the booty?
Yeah. What I look like? Is she prettier? So yeah, it's a great experience, and like Steph said, it can put you into some sort of, what do you call it? Some sort of hangover.
Man.
Subconscious hangover.
Well, we made a connection. May I share this piece?
Mm-hmm.
I had a dream. I was astral projecting one night, and I was sharing with you, and then you shared a piece of your session, and we made a connection. We're like, oh my God, we were in the same realm. I was on the other side of the island or something. So.
Oh yeah. So you had told me about a dream, and I actually had a separate dream, and then it was confirmed in the QHHT session about our connection.
We were tripping for like.
Yeah.
We're like, what? Like, we would describe the landscape, and it literally sounded like spot on.
Yeah. It was the same dream.
That is so cool. I mean,
yeah.
Whenever I give someone a session, it's totally confidential, but I know that like between the three of us that we're sharing everything. So
the Mayati sisters were in the dream too. So
and Aimee talked about our Mayati group in her session, and she's like, oh, y'all were mermaids together.
Yeah.
And she specifically talked about her and Steph having like multiple lifetimes together, and it was just like, oh yeah, so we're like deeply intertwined and connected, this group.
So it's cool just to know that, you know, there are certain reasons why you connect with certain people. And you know, when Steph and I started this podcast, we kept joking around like we must have had a former life together where we did this, because we kind of just fell into a rhythm of creating this podcast, and there was no real like push pull. It just was just very natural and very organic, and it was very easy, honestly. Like, it shouldn't be this easy, but you know, if we already have had done this before, then we kind of would be.
We flowed into it, really, and
we flowed into it.
Yeah, right.
Like mermaids
in the water. But I think like what we're trying to say is part of my decolonizing process is stepping into embracing this practice and acknowledging it as something, you know, millennial modern day. It's like, what? Like, I've heard of hypnosis from the line of work I do with quit smoking patients and how that has helped them. But I've also heard like success, and sometimes you'll have to keep going. I don't know if you worked with smoking people yet, but they're very much like into, some of them have really found hypnosis helpful with their addiction. But I say that all to say, like, to really step into a field of like believing this and embracing it, and then finding other folks who share that kind of like connection is like, you know, a whole thing. Like, the ego mind wants to tell you it's not real, and this colonizing capitalistic, like these intuitive gifts, they're not real. But in reality, it's like, I can choose to believe this, and intuitively, if I tap in with like not allowing all these voices to speak to me, I very much have like embraced it. Like, this is this is legit. Like these are things you can't make up. In reality, we're creative beings, so
Yeah.
it just makes
Yeah.
makes sense. If when you step into that decolonizing, like let me think for myself as a sovereign being and feel into like what feels real for me versus like what other people have told me is supposed to be real. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And just like one of the past chapters that we talked about in the Babaylan book that we're reading, they talk a little bit about indigenous science and how versus Western science. So Western science is very evidence based. Not that there's anything wrong with evidence based information, but something that you can quantify and look at. And they talk about indigenous science being just knowing, intuition, dreams. And there was I think it was an indigenous to this land, to Turtle Island, spiritual leader who said, you know, how in modern times, how I'm paraphrasing, but how can our ancestors talk to us except through dreams, you know? So speaking of dreams
and symbols and other intuitive ways to connect, like tell us more, Krisell.
So you're connecting through your intuition in everything that you're doing, and everything in your environment is actually speaking to you and communicating to you. And that's the medium. The universe is communicating through everything around you. So dreams is just one channel. So if you think of it in terms of like this is a life is a flat screen TV, your dreams is one channel, your physical space is another channel, your body is another channel. These are all just different channels. And when you are in your dreams, that's your subconscious, aka your intuition, aka your higher self, communicating with you. And to just let everyone's brain explode, all these different figures in your life are archetypes of yourself. So whether it be your ancestor, your spirit guide, whether it be like nature spirits, it doesn't matter. These are all just fractals of the totality of you, and they're archetypes of you that are the best representation or representative to communicate a specific thing to you. So when I say that, to give you an example, like I have a grandmother, maternal grandmother, that comes to me in my dreams and that I meet with in meditation. And she is like one of my master guides, which is someone that has been with me through different lifetimes, through different incarnations. And the kind of information she shares with me is specific to developing my intuition and for healing. And so this maternal divine feminine grandmother, this matriarch, is a representation of like of me, because I am a divine feminine matriarch that is healing my family and my ancestral lines and reconnecting with my intuition and the indigenous or native part of me. And so dreams, when people go into their dreams and they're experiencing these different things and these different people are coming to them and connecting with them, the most important thing that you can do to decipher and understand what all this means is to think first, what does this person mean to me? What is this symbol that's showing up, this color, the shape, or maybe it's like a locket that you had when you were a child. What does this mean to me? Because the universe will only communicate to you through the language that you know, which is your lived experience.
Nice. Yeah. Thoughts on that, sis?
They're like a labyrinth of like just following her.
You know, it's interesting you say about like your guides and your ancestors and the people that show up, that they are just, what did you call, fractals? Like they're a part of you, like archetypes of yourself. Because I was in meditation one day, and that's the exact thing that popped into my brain, that, you know, because I was like sitting with my guides and spirit, and then I was just like, all of these are inside of me. Like all of these energies are part of me. Like, you know, I can access them here in meditation, but I can always walk around and they are with me at all times because they are me. Like, even though they're not me, but they are me, you know?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
so that's kind of cool that you said that too. That's, yeah.
I have a question coming through because I'm a fan of Abraham Hicks from most of their work, and for like the listeners out there, they're still kind of like dipping their toe in the water with this stuff. What would you say? How would they be able to identify like what a guide or a medium, or like what kind of a like a spirit realm, or like how would they know? What would be a tip?
How would they know like what is coming to them? What kind of energy is coming to them?
Like how would they be able to be like, what's my spirit guidance? Like what does that look like? How do I identify it? How do I know it's there?
It starts with setting the intention. Like people are like, oh, intention's so basic, but really the intention is forming everything and is the basis of everything. So once you set an intention and set that intention to meet with your guides, then you can start to really see them and connect with them. Because otherwise, if there's any bit of fear there, your guides don't want to scare you and they respect you. Like treat them as people, treat it as a relationship, treat it as dating someone and getting to know them. And so if you think that you're connecting with a guide and you're not sure, ask them, are you my guide? And just ask them questions. And that's really how I do my practice, is that I'm always asking questions. I'm just a curious investigator about everything that I come in contact with. But I find what people struggle with the most is like, okay, so I ask them, how will I know if it's legitimate, if it's real? How do I know whether it's true or if it's a trickster, if it's just something that's a test for me? And that's where embodiment and being in your body and feeling the energy within you is so important, because you will feel it in your body, your embodied yes and your embodied no. And so that's the real discernment, is don't go playing with the pendulum because they speak through the pendulum and they could still lie to you, but to feel it in your body, your home, your truth, and to know and connect with what that embodied yes is.
I want to speak into embodiment because I'm noticing the collective right now, as well as for my own stuff, how our programming is so deeply rooted to like not be in your body and to like be. I'm a double air sign, so I'm just naturally in there, but like, and I have a fellow Virgo to bring me back to earth. I always tell her, but it's just like sometimes it's like I'm just recognizing, like there was a situation the other day, for example, like going out like at night, and they did not want to go out, but there was like peer pressure and like this people pleasing programs so apparent in the room. It's like almost midnight, but it's like, we're in LA, like let's go out. And she's like, my body says no, but I'll go. And I was just like, like to witness it was just like, dang, like you're really betraying yourself. And but so that was like kind of like an example for me to like witness collectively, like how many times, that was just an example, like how many times do we not honor, even going to the bathroom, you know what I'm saying? Because we're so busy at work, we don't honor our eating signals. Like those are basic intuitive, like your body's telling you to do something or believe it and listen to it.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the things I was thinking about that hit me the other day is, my background is from the evangelical church, and how like these systems, whether it be religious systems, even capitalism, like it's very disempowering, and it's very, well, specifically the religious systems are very fear-based, right? So you don't trust yourself. So I think like really coming back to your body and knowing that you are good and that you can trust yourself is where like you have to begin. Because like Krisell said, like your guides don't want to scare you. They love you. They love you, and they want to help you, but they're not going to do anything that you're not ready for. So I think maybe the first step for that is to like you like Krisell said, for sure, like to get back in your body and trust your yes and your no, right? So that was good.
I like that you brought that up too, Steph, because people pleasing is like what I do. I say that I'm empowering people to be conscious leaders. And that's like the work that I'm doing is an archetype. And to be empowered in a conscious leader is the light expression. But then the shadow expression is the people pleasing. So what we're healing is people pleasing through empowerment. And at the root of like all this madness of like being disembodied, not trusting yourself, is because the authority is outside of you, because you're pleasing someone else instead of pleasing yourself. And so that's where intuition change is the shift, because you're looking within, you're going within. It's about the inner wisdom. It's about that inner voice. It's about finding truth within you.
Yeah, it sounds so great when someone like holds that mirror and you're like, yeah, like what? I'm empowered. I make my own decisions, but then you recognize like how little nuanced things in your lifestyle or your daily, like, oh, this is the system taking me out of my body. This is like me trying to make sure I show up here and I really want to rest, you know. I really like Nap Ministry. They're on social media and they're just like, fucking rest, like it's okay. And it's interesting to see how, for me personally, on my own lived experience, like how capitalistic guilt like makes me want to be like on the go. But it's like, you know, I earned this time off, or I deserve this weekend. You know what I mean? I don't have to work right now. But anywho.
Yes, for sure. Are there any other questions that are coming up?
Anything you'd like to share?
I mean, just going on the topic of Steph talking about capitalism, this is something we talked about this weekend, where I was saying people pleasing is colonialism, because you are
the yes ma'am, no sir.
Yeah,
like in Philippines.
But just the culture of this outsider coming into your home and then being like, no, you need to conform to my standards and my expectations. And that's why people pleasing is at the root of all this. Like, even when you think of the monarch, it's not about you and your happiness. It's about serving the monarch. So people pleasing is really at the root of like all of this. And so when you think about it, yes, this is so deeply, deeply ingrained into our culture, our society, and into our DNA. And to dismantle it takes a lot of time. Well, I'm going to say, what is time, right? But it doesn't take a lot of time, but it's recognizing that how deeply ingrained it is, and understanding how, like, you have to start with the little things, because we build confidence when we make the little accomplishments, and then we start moving on to the big things.
Oh my gosh, that was good. So like,
should we take a breath?
People,
take a breath. Take a pause.
Okay. Decolonization. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was just saying, visually thinking about a ball that you're like unwinding, and like, you know, the rubber band balls or the yarn balls, like unknot things. It's like that's kind of what decolonizing, especially with tapping into intuition, is like, how do I unknot this and reknot it in a way that works for me? So something that I wanted to share, like, you know, people saying like people pleasing, I want to emphasize heart-centered, like discernment. Once you recognize like, oh, I'm people pleasing, doesn't mean you need to shut yourself down and be like, fuck everybody, I'm gonna do what I want to do, right? Because in reality, you're still human at the end of the day, and we're interconnected. So you know, it's like, you're not separate from me, you're a part of me. I want to honor my sovereignty, but how can I help you in a way that doesn't take from me, right? So that's why this whole movement of self-care and like charging your battery is that conversation. I'm happy it's all out in the collective, but kind of just recognizing that, like, it doesn't mean shut out everybody, which may be part of your process, but recognizing you come back and still
finding joy, because we talked about this. Like, we can talk about decolonization and the shadow work, but then how do we also bring in the light? Because it's not all about the shadow, it's about balancing the two.
Yeah.
And so that's why having gratitude and finding joy in the work is just as important as recognizing the shadow of decolonization. And so I know that's something that Steph and I were talking about this weekend, where it's like, we can't be all up in the darkness of like decolonization and F the man. Like, we also have to recognize that what we're putting into
Sometimes you want to go.
Right, but it's not, it can't be 100% of the time.
I know.
So then we have to recognize that, like, once we carve out and clean out that cavity, like that rotting, that toxicity, that we want to fill it with something that, because we're trying to find happiness, we're trying to find peace with it. And the light expression of decolonization is heart-centered, is being back to yourself, and is gratitude, like being able to be happy and peaceful.
Yeah.
Yes.
Drawing the boundary, right? Of what did we talk about? Cleaning in between the lines. Like, that's what I felt like she was supporting me with yesterday. So you're saying something, Steph? Sorry.
Oh no, I was just yesing. I was just amening over here. That's all.
We can pause.
I mean, it's Sunday.
I know.
Oh yeah.
Did you come to hear a word?
Yes.
Three women with glasses. By the way, we wore glasses in honor of Krisell. Just wanted to.
There's a little bit of glare.
Mine too. But these are blue light.
Okay.
We also can think of you because like her hair is like unicorn. She's like kind of unicorn. Yeah. Yours are like Harry Potter, sis.
Yes.
Yeah, if Harry Potter were a Filipina, Babaylan Bruha.
Yes.
There was one Asian girl in Harry Potter,
but she was like white skin.
And why was her name Cho Chan? That's low key.
Yeah, like what? Are you just gonna name her?
You're gonna give her a better name, JK. Like,
come on, like what the? Anyway, that's a tangent. Yeah, but oh my gosh, you just like, you know, I think when people think about decolonization, back to what Krisell said, like when people think about decolonization, they think about specifically like work with their ancestors or work with specifically like whatever you know, ancestral line or specific ancestral grief, ancestral healing, etc. But it's I don't know, it just hit me in a different way when you said like dismantling people pleasing is dismantling capitalism is decolonization work. So I was like, wow. So it's, I don't know, it's kind of cool to recognize that for myself anyway in my journey. I've, even before I was doing decolonization work, like that I knew like intentionally, right? I was already doing decolonization work by like confronting my shadows, going to therapy, et cetera, so, you know, so that's really cool.
I think that active just questioning is, you know, decolonizing, asking why. Like,
that is to ask questions is so empowering, because if you think about centuries back when colonization and like monarchies were a thing, you don't ask, you just take orders, you just obey, like, right, don't talk, just do.
Yeah. Yes.
That makes me want to my combat, my ancestral like rage is coming up. Fuck that. Clear out your own pee water, damn it.
But I think the biggest thing is like, people think of decolonization and they're like, that's colored people's work. But the truth is like the entire globe is colonized. Yeah. You look at Europe, it's hard to identify the indigenous groups of Europe because they have such a long history of colonization.
Yeah.
And this is their work. This is much their work. Like, they have more work because it's harder for them to get to their roots. So yeah,
but they have roots. That's the thing. They have roots. They have roots that are as magical. I saw something on like the internet. I forget if it was like Instagram or whatever, and it was this woman of color, and she was saying to white people, because the white person had asked something. She was like, "Yeah, you could research my spirituality but oh, it was about voodoo. So voodoo is a closed practice, right? And so she's like, yeah, you can research it without practicing it, but why would you want to? Why would you want to spend all that energy when you have your own ancestors and your own magic and your own decolonization work to do? And she kind of pointed out that maybe like a lot of white people are into these indigenous practices and try to appropriate and shit because they don't realize
they can tap into their own shit.
Yeah, and it's, you know, it's just as indigenous and connected to the land. And but yeah, it's probably because
they were
yeah.
too.
I mean, I look at life as, because, you know, we're all souls, and we come into this life having experienced amnesia so that we could experience a totally new experiment, a totally new experience. And I feel like that theme shows up in life in so many ways, even like in terms of culture. So it's this journey of how far can you get from yourself and then still come back, still find your home, still find your truth. And when I look at like white people, it's like you just keep going further and further away and you're missing the point. Come back to your truth. And it's not to say that you can't experience these other cultures, but how are you coming back to your truth through this culture?
Oh,
like, why are you prophetizing off yoga when your great ancestors might have been like doing a sun ceremony, and that's something you could sell? Like, what? And that would be interesting for me to learn. I think like, I don't know what culture it was, but somewhere in Europe, they actually built these rocks that would tell them when to honor the sun, when it's the longest day of the year, and that was their summer solstice. That was in Europe. I just want to say that again. So it's like asking those people, like, why aren't you bringing this workshop, you know what I mean, and charging like $200 for it, you know?
Because they don't remember, and they've been so colonized. And maybe this is a whole different conversation, but really the church was the first, what is the colonizer, because they colonized Europe. They came to like the Celtic people and said, you can't have your gods and goddesses, you must become Christian. The Europe was colonizing Europe, but why? Because of the church.
Crusade. It was the crusade.
Yes.
So the question is, anyway, why are white people doing ancestral healing?
Because they probably don't think they need to. Because I know, like, so I have a lot of white friends, but
in Ohio, no way.
In Ohio, I know, right? So, but like a lot of them they're very like, they're all like, wow, you know, that's great, you're researching your ancestry. Like, I wish I had ancestors, but you know, we just come from whatever, Virginia. I'm just like a regular plain old white person.
I guarantee you, Virginia.
Yep, right. But they're like, I don't even know where I'm from. Like, I'm just like a plain old white person. Like, I'm just white bread. Like, I'm boring. And so, you know, but that's a program. That's a lie. American, because that's an American lie.
And,
you know what
I mean? And that's bypassing. Like, that is bypassing. You're using your white breadness as bypassing. Like, I don't need to know because I just know I'm white. It's like,
yeah.
No. And that's what I like. I don't know if you guys plan on covering Author Lenny's book, Decolonization, but that's what I loved about that book. Like, she talks about her white partner and how he needed to do the decolonization work too. And it's not about just like dismantling white supremacy. It's also about getting to understanding who you are and your lineage,
who you really
generations before you.
Yeah. We talked about identity politics a lot, because in reality, once all these veils drop, like, who are you really, you know?
Yeah.
Avatar.
And you know, just to put the record straight for my white friends, like, some of them are they really do want to connect, but that's the programming that they've been brought up with, that they have nothing, that there is nothing, so there's nothing to even look for. You know, and they see me, and I can sense from them that they have a pang, that they have like Like they want to, but they think there's nothing, you know? So that's colonization.
Yeah.
About it. God lied to them and said that there's nothing for you to look for, because that's what they told us. There's nothing for you to look for, assimilate.
That's where I like coming through that heart discernment is to recognize, though there's so much stereotype right now, everyone's stereotyping my skin, you know, and it's just like, end of the day, white people need like someone to remind them too, you know, like kind of not check them, you know, kind of like you have ancestry too. Like, what did your ancestors do? Let's talk about it. You know, like that would be an interesting conversation. And I know we're derailing so far from dreams.
Yeah.
But you know,
this is what we do.
but all the dreams are just trying to tell you to let go of the people pleasing and the decolonization.
Yeah.
Embrace who you are and just, you know, bring that, like paint that, like, ooh, we could go on so many tangents right now. But
yes. Okay.
Let's bring it back.
Let's bring it back. So,
as we kind of close out, like,
questions for you, Krisell, in your experience with the clients you're working with so far. What are maybe like top 3 messages you've seen thematically, and what would you have recommendations for us, for the collective?
And actually, this brings it full circle because people pleasing is the biggest one.
Okay.
And it's all connected because it's the people pleasing, reconnecting with your inner truth, and the third one that I would say is more like, actually no, yeah. So the third message for the collective from my work up to date is that oftentimes we're looking at the bigger picture, like the broader goal, and we allow ourselves to get overwhelmed by the steps it will need to take to get to that bigger goal. And so I've always been a person that's like into micro goals because I like the feeling of accomplishment, but to allow ourselves to test the waters with something small. So I know I kind of talked about this earlier, but it's like, you know, for example, because everybody be all up in the manifestation and abundance vibe, like if you see that having this big home is something that you want to accomplish, what are the little things that you need to accomplish in order to get there? Or if you see this big home, but you're like, I am so not deserving of such a big home, allowing yourself to feel or to test the waters of being deserving. So you go out, you buy yourself that boba, and you're like, I deserve this, and I love this, and I love myself because I deserve this. And then when you do that so many times, you're like, damn, this is just my baseline now. And then allowing yourself something bigger, and letting yourself know, or allowing yourself the feeling of deserving. And eventually that feeling of deserving grows within your nervous system. So that you look at that home and you're like, hell yeah, I deserve that home. And then it just is.
Yes.
Love that you're walking that through, because I'm really trying to manifest at home right now.
I'm just riding your energy.
Okay, so you said people pleasing,
letting go of the people pleasing. Oh shoot, what did I say for the second one?
Live in your truth.
Oh yeah,
live in your truth.
Yeah, so letting go of the people pleasing, returning to your inner truth, and then allowing yourself the little steps to take you to the bigger steps.
Yes.
Break it down into small, manageable, realistic steps. So if
I love that.
Overwhelm. Because overwhelm is real, and I feel like that's a different conversation. But what they say like differentiates like the professionals versus the dabblers and stuff. So yeah, small steps.
That's beautiful. Well, before we end, can you tell us where people can find you on the socials, on the interwebs?
So people can find me at my website, www.krisellcan.com. And then I'm on Instagram at krisellcan.medium.
Look at this card though.
Yeah.
Your background. Here you go, y'all. Oh, look at you.
Oh, you're so cute.
And then if you go to my website, I do free readings and live streams twice a month. on Instagram, Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube Live. And you can find the schedule on my website.
Mm.
Yes, and we'll have all her links listed.
Yeah, we'll link it below. But thank you for your time and your offerings and your gifts.
Yes.
Sharing it with us. And being our first guest.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Am I?
Yes.
You're your first guest.
Oh, thank you.
Yay.
So special.
Okay. So
Well, thank you for having me. I love you guys so much. So to be able to do this with you is so fun.
Yes, for sure.
All about fun.
Yeah, that's the joy
Ancestral
and the
joy.
ancestral joy and the decolonization. So there we go. So
there we go.
Okay, Babaylan Bruhas.
All right. Thank
Signing
you,
off.
Yes. Good night.
Yeah.
Good day.
That one was good. I felt it. Did you feel it? I felt it. Okay.
Yay.